So thanks for joining us today, obviously taking the time for an hour this morning. And what we're looking at is, hopefully you're aware already, the school systems and what we've tried in our school to help the transition from in-person teaching moving over to a remote classroom, and obviously what systems we've now kept in place as well, so that if we are asked to lock down again, or we have to send pupils home, or staff have to isolate, what can make the transition as smooth as possible. So there is time at the end to answer any questions. The account that I'm using to Zoom this out, it's pretty locked down. I think there might be a chat feature where you can send me messages. If there is, by all means, do send them, and I'll try and go through some of them at the end. Failing that, what I'll do is we'll maybe unmute ourselves, and if you did have any questions, we can ask them at the portion at the end. So hopefully that's okay with everyone. So short answer, if there is chat available, do send them to me. They'll ping up. I've got a couple screens here. So I'll try and answer them either at the time if it makes sense, or I'll save them to the end. So hopefully that's okay for everyone. Just a bit of an overview of what we'll go through. So I'll just give you a bit of an introduction, a bit of context of who I am, the school we're coming from, and the program. And I'm sure a lot of you are already happy with what the program has to offer. We'll then have a quick discussion in terms of the systems and what we think they need to cover for a school, to support staff, the community, parents, and the students. I'll give you a few examples of what we've used, what's worked well for us, what hasn't, some things we're thinking about in the future. And then, like I say, I'll just open it up to a bit of a Q&A as we go through. A bit of useful information for you. So this is obviously being recorded. So the recording, the audio, the slides, and any Q&A or any links that I talk about, we share them through a periodic newsletter. So if you would if you do want to get the information or anything we do in the future or any of the resources, if you just go to the address bit.ly/edtechmail, it just asks for email address. It's done through MailChimp, so you can kind of unsubscribe at any time. But again, that's if you wanted to get the information on what we're going through today and a bit more of what we do, then that's just a good link to go to. Let's go admit a few more people. Okay, so we're based at King's Leadership Academy in Warrington. It's an 11 to 18 free school in the Northwest. This is our 9th year of being open. We're part of a wider trust, the Great Schools Trust, with 2 schools in Liverpool, 1 in Bolton. So it's a 4-school trust. In case you didn't know about the EdTech program, I'm not sure how you all got the link to this, whether it was through Twitter or through the London Grid for Learning or through EdTech. But effectively, the DFE has put some money to the side, and through the London Grid for Learning, they've given schools like a status on the program to try and help other providers in this this period that we're in at the minute. So it could be helping some schools getting online, teaching live lessons, using resources, or it could be all the way up to the other end of just creating online policies or whatever the case may be. So the EdTech program is about 40 to 50 schools, I believe, who are trying to help drive this move to remote or blended learning in their region. So we're based in the Northwest. If you do want any more information on the EdTech program, it's completely free for users or anyone to come on board. It doesn't matter the phase. So we're a secondary school, but this afternoon I'm working with a primary, just because the systems they want to put in place are very similar to what we've used before. You can just search EdTech Demonstrator Program, or you can go to the London Grid for Learning. So the London Grid for Learning are kind of the admin and helping, pair up schools with providers and so on. So yeah, that's a bit of context on us and also the program. Just a quick bit about me. I'm the vice at the school. Teaching and learning, science, and the EdTech is kind of my roles and responsibilities this year. 12th year of teaching, so done it for a bit, but I'm sure there's probably a bit more experience in the room. This is my 8th year at the school. Previously, I was at Ormiston Bolingbroke in Runcorn, for anyone who knows the Northwest at all. If anyone does want to contact me, the best place is probably through Twitter, I would have thought. So there's my handle if you did want to kind of touch base or ask anything further, or you wanted to take advantage of the program for your school, or maybe another school that you work closely with. So as I mentioned before, I'm just going to mention about what worked well for us in lockdown and kind of what we've continued to use. And for us, it's been all about making the transition as seamless as possible, especially today. So I've just taught a year 11 lesson, and across the year group, we've got some year 11s who are off, but we think we're able to still include them in the lessons, even though they're at home, whether it's isolating or waiting for a test or whatever it may be. So it's, yeah, everything today is how we can make it as seamless as we can. And I'm well aware we're not all in the same context. I think Dylan Williams says it always, like, you know, everything works somewhere, but nothing works everywhere. I'm not trying to preach this is the way forward, only what's worked well for us. And my hope is ideally you maybe just take one piece of software or an idea or a thought and try it for yourself, and you'll definitely make it better for your own pupils and staff and communities and so on. So when we're thinking about the systems, our end, the main things that we considered were, how do they help with teaching and learning? Obviously, don't know what's happened there with my slides. Apologies for that. Then safeguarding and well-being. Then what can we think about in terms of parental contact? And then the last one for us was just day-to-day tasks. You know, it's complicated enough teaching 6 lessons a day with all your duties. How can we try and help things, reduce the number of clicks needed for staff? So the first one I'll talk about is just what we did in terms of the teaching and learning. What systems have we used and what examples are there? So we use Zoom to teach, or when we were originally locked down, we used Zoom to teach our live lessons. We also use, I know there's Teams and there's Google, and a lot of things that I mentioned here, you might be able to take across to other platforms. For us, Zoom was just the best fit. I know each of them have their strengths and weaknesses. What I would say is if you're at the point in your journey where you're considering what to use for your lessons or for your teaching or for recording or doing your webinars or whatever, a lot of them have free, freemium versions. So definitely have a go on those. I know Zoom, for example, has a free version, which is a bit more locked down as you'd expect. But again, it gave us a taste of, okay, this might be something that we can make work better for us. So what we did was the advantages for us for Zoom were things like the recording of the sessions, being able to, you can pick the settings for all the staff. So for example, the account I'm on now, Zooming through, I'm able to pick all the settings for safety and for who can log in and what can be saved and what can't be saved and what pupils can chat to and so on. But I'm able to also push out those settings for everyone in the school who's using the same logins. So staff now don't need to worry, have I got those 50 settings right? It's something we can do centrally. So that was quite handy for us, especially in the beginning where that was one of our main concerns, and some of the feedback we got from staff was, how can we make this work for us and make it as safe as possible? The blended approach. So what we're doing now, so Zoom worked really well on lockdown. What we're doing now is, so for example, period 1, year 11 just had science. So year 11 was spread between 6 teachers. For year 11, I was the one science teacher in that period who was Zooming my lesson out. So it didn't matter which class the pupils were in, whether it was mine or Miss Smith or Mr. Jones. If you're off because of, COVID symptoms or isolating, the pupils all have my link. It gets sent out to them on a timetable. So I also had 6 other pupils who were just like along for the ride in my lesson. Downsides of it are obviously those pupils might not be up to the same point I am, but considering as long as you're planning in the departments kind of solid and use of Google Classroom and sharing resources, that's something that's worked well for us. We're also thinking of how we can use Zoom for some of those other things we did. So we're looking at plans on how to use it for consultation evenings. So every year, I'm head of year 9, we get year 9 parents in to talk about the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Say the attendance, that is 80%. We're thinking about using Zoom this year. So the Duke of Edinburgh team still do the same presentation, still invite the same parents, but now because it's on Zoom, it's either easier for parents to just access at home, and it means they don't have to drive in. Some parents who are at work, it's easier for them to steal 20 minutes just to be part of this session and then just carry on with work if their shift, needs them to do so. And I think it's probably the same for, in your minds now, you might be thinking, oh yeah, I wonder what we could also use Zoom for. I mean, we do things just because that's how it's always been done with the parents' evenings. I know it hasn't changed from when I was in school, but maybe there's like a paradigm shift now of, okay, maybe for those parents who are hard to reach or who work those hours that don't tie in with our parents' evenings, maybe we could use Zoom to have it's not really face-to-face, but you can still engage with them. Also gives you the advantage of you can share work really easily in the same way I'm sharing this slide. I could quite easily foresee a teacher just getting some examples of work they've quickly taken pictures of and sharing it, with parents in much the same way I'm sharing this. So yeah, Zoom's an interesting one. We're really excited about how we might be able to use it moving forwards. Like I say, some of those other tasks. Another system that worked well for us was Google Classroom. The reason I've mentioned, so I was kind of umming and ahhing about whether I should share this, because I know other people have, I think they use Microsoft 365, I think might be an option. But the reason I mentioned this is because there is still funding available. So the government will fund you to get Google set up within your school. I think they cover all the costs. I've got the link though. So if you sign up to that email, that web address I gave you earlier, I'll put the link in there. But yeah, they're funding schools to get Google set up. Now, Google Classroom is the main way that we share resources. So for those who don't know, you have your Google Drive in the background, which is where you can share your folders. But Google Classroom is like a front end. So it's where the pupils log in, excuse me, they can see their classes. They can see all the resources that teachers have put together for them. And it kind of tidies up the behind the scenes. So if I set an assignment for 30 pupils, what Google Classroom does is it makes all those folders in the background. So it says Mr. Barker, assignment 1, and then it has all the pupil folders and all the work they complete. So it's a nice front end that does all that, the churning and the machinery behind the scenes. It's also, because it links in with our pupil email addresses, it's fantastic for getting announcements to them. So, announcements about home learning, or don't forget lab coats for 6th form, or whatever it might be, because it ties in. It's a nice way of doing that. And like I say, a great front end for files. Now, what we've been doing is, again, if we can try and build this into the normal day-to-day teaching, that, well, when the pupils are off or they're isolating or the bubble's sent home, there's no difference. It's exactly the same. So it's part of our normal content distribution now. So whether it's revision materials or worksheets or links to YouTube or stretch and challenge reading lists, whatever it might be, that's now how we push out all the content. One, because it's going to go to the pupil. It's always going to be ordered as well as you kind of order it in. And also it's all saved on the Google Drive. Parental feedback was another reason we like Google Classroom. So it links into your MIS. So as soon as you change sets, for example, you want to move a pupil up or down or whatever it might be, Google Classroom automatically changes the classes. So there's no manual moving of pupils. But also it's able to read parent email addresses as well from the MIS. So, or you can manually put them in. So if there were certain reports or missing homework, or just you wanted to send an example of fantastic work to parents, then you can all do it through Google Classroom. So again, another great link there for that transparency between parents, the school, and the pupils. I've mentioned Google Suite previously, seeing work completed live on your device. So Google has a set of, it has a word processor, Google Docs, it's got a spreadsheet, Google Numbers, not Google Numbers, it's called Google Sheets, and it's got a PowerPoint making Google Slides. So what you're able to do is you can create, for example, let's say a template, and you can share it with all the pupils and they can just edit their own copy and you can see it live updating on your device. So again, I'm thinking of when we were in lockdown, we had 20 pupils in a class, let's say, and they're all completing their work, and I can just quite easily click through, scroll through and see the work they're doing, which is something that was initially lost when we did the remote learning. That idea of what you would do in a classroom is walk around and speak to the pupils and have that dialogue and see how they were doing and the quality of the work they were putting down. But that was lost in the first stages of the lockdown. Whereas with this Google Suite and being able to see the work that they're typing live on their document, just added another layer of whether it's intervention or support or challenge or whatever it might be. The other advantage, the other advantage of Google Suite is it can be used on any device really easily. So Microsoft Word has a ton of functionality on it, and I think you can produce better products with it. But Google Suite, because it's really streamlined, you've got just the basics in there. It's really easy to use it on a phone or an iPod Touch or a tablet or a computer or whatever. So again, for those maybe who might have pupils who don't have devices, they might have access to a phone. Again, that was another plus for us. And yet another one for Google Docs, it'll be a future webinar, but you're able to add comments onto the work. So a pupil might give you an answer, you quickly type a comment, and then they can reply to it, and you can see this dialogue, this stream of feedback between you and the pupil, or just the pupil and themselves after they've interacted with a marking rubric or whatever it might be. So again, that was another nice touch, an easy bit of functionality that you get with the Google Suite as well. Now, how, again, the red is kind of like how we're using it now and how we want to continue using it. So we're now doing we're trialing it anyway. Our home learning is all done using a similar system. So gone are the days of physically writing this down and bringing in a sheet of paper, or doing these questions and bringing them in and so on. What we do now is we convert everything to a Google Doc, and the pupils complete it electronically, and we're able to collect it instantly and see who's done it and who hasn't. And we can kind of check up, like for my pupils, it's Thursday to Thursday. So on a Wednesday, I'll quickly fly through. I can see when they were all last edited, and I might just go to people going, you know, tomorrow's the day to hand it in. I see you haven't done that much. Let's, you know, get it going. We're trying to preempt the issues we might have further down the line. And it also means there's no paper to collect in anymore. Now, one of the concerns we received was, well, if they're doing it all online, maybe, you know, they could quite easily Google search something, copy and paste it in. That's really easy to do. But what Google now has, when you set assignments on Google Classroom, there's a plagiarism checker. So if you just tick one box, what Google does is it scans every single piece of work, and it does like a full Google search on every single sentence. It's fantastic. So I use it with my A-level pupils, and just to show them, right, okay, just so you know, these 3 answers have come up word for word. It gives you the web page as well, Wikipedia or whatever journal it might have come from. So that's a really nice feature to have on there, and just to let the pupils know this is there. I don't think there's anything wrong with them researching it if they don't know, but more, you know, maybe you just want them to have a guess at it first before, you know, they go onto Google and find an answer. But yeah, that plagiarism check is a really interesting one, and a good feature that we've been using. So they were just some of the teaching and learning. So the Zoom, the Google Classroom, and then the Google Suite of apps or software that we use as well. The next one was safeguarding and wellbeing, and this one's definitely going to be a future webinar. There's too much here for me to cover, but it's been one of the things that came from our pastoral team that they developed, and I really think they should come and kind of talk through it a bit more. So what we called it was our command center, and we saw it as a one-stop shop for all the important information. So if you just picture, like, we have 50 teachers and they're all working from home, but we want them all to have the same access to whatever the documents might be. And it was created with the idea of just, I think this is what Apple do. Apple said you should never be more than 3 clicks away from what you're actually after. So we put this together with the same view of the staff should never be more than X number of clicks away from whatever the information is that we wanted. And because it's a Google Doc, this is actually done in the spreadsheet version, Google Sheets. It live updates. So the screen I'll show you shortly, staff can't edit it at all. They can't break it. They can't change anything. All they can do is click on the links and it'll take them to where they need to. And now we use it all the time. So this document is now just a live, living, breathing document that we update as and when it's needed. So this is what it looks like. And it looks really unwielding, but it's not too bad. So for example, the first section is all pastoral, behavior, and praise. So our pastoral curriculum, enrichment ideas, our ATLs, which is like our behavior tracker, it's all on there. So if there's ever a behavior issue, staff would have this web page open, this Google Sheet open, they could just access those. We then have a staff safeguarding section. Okay, so it's like risk assessments for pupils, key worker guidelines, which was a big one for us during the lockdown, all the important agency numbers. So if something gets disclosed in a lesson to a teacher, they know who to call. There's the guidelines on there for making your lessons safe, and school closure information. So again, all there for staff. This one, just at the top, we had the DSL phone numbers on there for obvious reasons, and the deputies on there as well. This one's just like staff support. So during lockdown, our PE team put together a staff fitness timetable. So every day over lunch, there was like Zumba or some form of aerobics or yoga, mindfulness. But again, so staff could kind of go in there and take half an hour off if they needed to. Staff mobile numbers are on there for obvious reasons, last day arrangements and so on. So that was one for staff. The next section is all for student links. So if students have IT problems, there's a link that these are the links you share with the pupils. So if they have an incident they want to report, if they need a help guide, or they need online support through, we have Kooth. These are the links that a teacher could just go along, copy it, and paste it in the chat to the pupil privately if they needed those links. And then the last one was, it was the parent advice. So we had a lot of parents reaching out to the teacher at the time. So again, this was, if this parent goes, oh, do you have any advice on what we need to do for primary resources? We could go to this page, copy the link and reply back to the email to the parents. So that was that's like, we called it, like I say, our command center. And this is, because it's a Google Sheet, you access it through a web page. This is just live updating. So one day there might be a new column in there to do with bubbles, or following Boris Johnson's news today, there might be another little section going in there. But again, something the staff can't break or don't feel worried about messing up, and just like a load of links that are just one click away if this tab's always open for them. Now, the other one, again, for Google Suite, the ability to log issues through Google has a product called Google Forms. And it's a way that, so it's a way we use for if we want to assess pupils, like through multiple choice, and they can use a device for it. We've been doing, recently our canteen's been taking food orders to limit the amount of people going through our canteen, and Google Forms is how we've done it. So pupils pick their name off a list, say what they want for break, say what they want for lunch. And as soon as they hit send, it's all stored logically on a Google Sheet, like behind the scenes for whoever to read. Another interesting one that I've got the most use from is you can build in instant notifications. So as head of year 9, we have a year 9 safeguarding document. And anytime a member of staff puts something into it, it automatically sends him an email just going, by the way, someone's put something in the safeguarding form. But again, another really useful use of Google Forms. So that staff member will still come speak to me, but as soon as it's in, it kind of gets that paper trail. It means I can have my eyes on it as well and go offer support if needed, or speak to whoever, you know, might need to have a conversation with. So yeah, help with our lunch ordering. It helps with surveys in terms of pupil voice, staff voice, anything where you just want to get data quickly and, you know, collect it all in one place. So that Google Suite from a safeguarding standpoint is really, really good. The next one was parental contact. Now, we've been, I'm guessing the same as most of you involved in, like, you know, the education is, we've been sending letters out and emails out to parents. This next one though, I'm just going to mention it because it's something I use outside of education, but it's something a school asked me. So the question they asked was, we have a letter that we want parents to sign and return, but we don't necessarily want that to actually happen because, you know, just to lower the risk of transmission, we don't want to send out paper for parents to sign and then physically give back to us. Also, it's in terms of chasing, just the paper chasing task of it all. So something I've come across, and I think it's quite a useful website. It's called DocuSign. I'm not sure if anyone's used this at all. Like I said, we've not used it in school, but it's just to let you all know that this is out there. So DocuSign's a website whereby you upload a PDF or a Word document. You then decide where you want signatures or dates or names or contact details. So for example, say it was a trip, you might go, I want the parent to put their printed name there. I want them to put the name of the child here. I want them to put their signature there. And I want the date it was all signed here on, you know, like on a pre-made return slip. You put this all into DocuSign, you just drag and drop where you want all these things happening. And then you put the email addresses of everybody you want to sign it, and it just batch sends it out. And you're able to track and trace who's signed, who's opened the email, who's read it, who's signed it, who's returned it. And then you're able to get, it's obviously not a wet signature, but it's, and it's all verified. So you get IP addresses. So if anything did happen, you're able to trace exactly what device it was signed on, and when it was signed and where it was signed as well. So yeah, a way to send out materials to parents where you can get, you know, you can make sure they've been read or actioned. So I was just thinking just earlier in the week of, you might do that for, well, it's unlikely trips are going to happen soon, but you might do it for trips or consent forms, or I know some schools ask staff to sign a document going, have you read the, you know, Keeping Children Safe in School document? But again, it's more just the time it saves, I think, as opposed to manually printing, sending, collecting, and logging. You're able to do all of it as fast as you can, you know, say where you want the signature and copy and paste the email addresses into DocuSign. So I thought I'd just share that one with you. I think it would answer quite a few of the questions I've been receiving in the program over the last, you know, few few weeks and so on. And then the last one was just like the day-to-day tasks. And it links back to what we were mentioning before in terms of just Google Live. How do you make sure that all the staff have got, you know, the most up-to-date version of whatever it is you want them to have? So we use it a lot now for duty points. You can imagine when we first came into school, you know, the entry into school is very different for, I would have thought, everybody. So duty points were brand new. You kind of go through the system for one day and you realize, oh, this person can't be on duty then because they're teaching here, or they need to cover X. So that changes all the time. And then with the new announcements or pupils going off or staff just not being in, being able to have one solid document that you can just always update. You have the one person who updates it. So our lead of pastoral just always updates it. And then that just means whenever the staff click that duty link that's going to open up a document, it's always up to date. And it might change, but there's always that one version that goes out. I know previously we've maybe had duty rotors printed and put on the wall, and then you change it, so they all have to come back in, and then you put new ones up. Invariably, you normally accidentally just leave one up somewhere. Or maybe there was the file attached to an email and people have starred the email and they're opening up an old version of it all. So again, it's really good for us for the duty points. Also, we have some pupils who we keep for intervention after school. So it could be supportive, like they're asking to come to help with UCAS applications or whatever it might be, or it could be detentions or corrections. But again, we have one list that's just updated centrally. We did think about the idea of putting it onto our MIS, you know, SIMS or Bromcom, but sometimes we found when staff are accessing it all, say Bromcom or SIMS, it can sometimes take quite a while to log in and, you know, find the report and run the report or check the register. And sometimes it's not very stable if some people are using it on a phone or a tablet or a computer. Whereas Google seems pretty stable, you know, across the board when it comes to accessing it from different devices or different people accessing it as well. It's also easier just to edit a Google Doc as it were. Well, we think it is anyway. It was easier to edit a Google Doc as opposed to going into like your MIS and changing where pupils are or their timetables and so on. So I know I've rattled through that one. I was really keen to kind of get to the Q&A portion of it all. So I've not received any chat. So I think I've locked this meeting down too well. I'll change that for the next one. But maybe just you can use I think you can maybe raise your hand on the window. I don't know if anyone did have any questions that they wanted to share or wanted to ask, wanted to know more. Maybe you could either green tick or hands up if you did have anything you want to put to the group. I'll take that as a no. So just while maybe some of you might be thinking of something to put forward, if you wanted to find out more about the EdTech program, then you just search EdTech program in Google, or you can search London Grid for Learning, and they'll give you a bit more information on that. It's free to sign up to. You just complete a Google form, and you can put your name in and against it, your school, and it also allows you to choose a school. So anyone who's in the Northwest, you can pick Great Schools Trust, Kings, and we're more than happy to help. Or there may be someone closer to you. We've worked with a few from the East Midlands because they just so happen to be using Zoom and Classroom, and that's what we as a trust specialize in a bit more. So it doesn't matter if you're not in the Northwest. Also, I mentioned earlier that there's a Google program where they'll come into the school and help you get set up. I've got the link, so if anybody did want to have that information, then I've got the link. If you just sign up to the address that you see on the screen, put your email address in, and when I send this all out later today or tomorrow, I'll include the link in there for you. Peter, I can see your hands up there. So did you have a question, sir?
It's more of a comment, Ben, if that's okay.
Yeah, by all means, Peter, thanks.
My name's Peter Gall. I'm the head teacher of one of the schools in Ben's trust. And we worked very closely with Kings Warrington's model very quickly in April and May. And we were able to move to a Zoom timetable setup, which proved incredibly effective and really brought great community interest and great parental backing. It's not an easy process in the first couple of weeks, and it's quite a scary comfort zone, wrenching, but I would thoroughly recommend the systems linked to Google Classroom, and it's certainly transformed the way we deliver a curriculum, and it's given our staff huge confidence in terms of how we use the most up-to-date technology for the benefit of the students. We've also tackled issues about device poverty and all sorts of issues around that. So I would fully endorse the model that's being proposed today. And there's no money in it for me, but it's just it's moved our school on at an exponential rate. Really, that's all I've got to say, Ben. Really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Just to emphasize, thanks for that, Peter. The backing that we've got from the local community in terms of just parents of pupils has been huge. Like, I know we're probably all in the same boat. I think they appreciated, having resources online for pupils to use and to keep them engaged. And yeah, reaching out to primaries as well. So we've got more primaries that are kind of leaning on us to go, could you just help us out with this? Or how do you solve this issue? We've got more primaries that we're helping than we do secondary. So I'd say, yeah, definitely as much as you can, or as anything you want to try, or if you come up with anything that's better, I'll be more than happy to take it on board and steal it and try and make it a bit smoother for our guys here as well.